the Dragon Balls. Magical, wish-fulfilling orbs that have skyrocketed to popularity throughout the world. But what is the true origin of these wish-fulfilling orbs? Today, you will learn of the Dragon Jewels. If you want to learn more about the Dragon Balls, today, your wish has been granted.
Chapter 1: Dragons. Dragon Ball is a story that implements heavy Chinese-based symbolism and aesthetics due to Toriyama's love of martial arts films and Chinese culture. Before we get into the Dragon Jewels themselves, it's important to understand the symbolism behind dragons themselves in Chinese culture. Dragons are so ingrained into Chinese culture that the rulers of China themselves are said to be the descendants of dragons. Since Goku is based on an immortal Taoist Chinese deity who eventually becomes a Buddha, it's important to understand the symbolism around dragons specifically in reference to these spiritual and moral philosophies. In Taoism, dragons are associated with the spiritual realm within the cosmos. The dragon's breath absorbs the chaos of reality, and the Tao creates order, allowing us to reach our full potential with our true nature intact as a being who constantly wrestles with their ego or their monkey mind. So, Taoists believe that when the world was born, it was originally a world of void. Eventually, Qi was formed within the cosmos, and it developed into what we know as yin and yang. Yin energy formed the earth, and yang energy formed the heavens, and both energies harmonized to create mankind. But not just mankind, this is also the origin behind Sun Wukong, who as a stone egg absorbed a large amount of energy from heaven and earth to eventually form the stone monkey, or who we know as Sun Wukong. This makes mankind and the Monkey King a microcosm of the same energies that formed the universe itself. Eventually, yin and yang split further into what's known as the five elements. The dragon and the tiger are also symbolic of yin and yang, along with the phoenix and the dragon. And so the dragon is constantly referenced within Taoism as the keeper of the Tao. The dragon was the symbol of the emperor in China. The Yellow Emperor, who is known as the founder of all Chinese culture, was taken to heaven via a dragon and was said to have become the stars themselves. The Yellow Emperor isn't the only being that descended to heaven this way. It is traditional for Taoist deities who had found enlightenment to travel to heaven via a dragon steed, and this was even the case for Buddha himself. Now, the Jade Emperor is a motif for the original god in Chinese culture. The Jade Emperor is the highest deity in Taoism, second only to Buddha himself, and the target of Sun Wukong in Journey to the West, as his intent was to dethrone him and rule heaven. The Jade Emperor represents the nature of the dragon and is symbolic of Taoist enlightenment. The Monkey King threatening to dethrone the Jade Emperor is symbolic of the dangers of letting our monkey mind rule over us, and our Buddha nature keeps it in check. The Jade Emperor could transform into a dragon himself and represents the balance we must achieve between our monkey mind and Buddha nature via Taoism to become a benevolent person worthy of a high position in society. He is a ruler with a great innate sense of justice, but he has no bias and is impartial, which is the perfect representation of this balance we are speaking of. The Eastern Dragon King from Journey to the West is where Sun Wukong gets his iconic armor and staff. Sun Wukong essentially robs him, which is a neat parallel to Goku's interaction with a wish-fulfilling dragon.
启奏万岁！今有妖猴孙悟空蛮横无理，大闹龙宫，拔去我镇海之宝。此猴妖法甚大，若不除去，龙宫永远不得安宁。望万岁为老臣做主。
妖猴什么来历？胆敢如此放肆？
哦，那妖猴好生了得，他是500年前得到的猴精，力能降龙伏虎，移山倒海，万岁切不可轻视啊！
An ancient Chinese proverb states the following: If you ignore the dragon, it will eat you. If you try to confront the dragon, it will overpower you. And if you ride the dragon, you will take advantage of its might and power. This is in reference to the Tao itself and the principles of yin and yang, and how they should be approached. Now, in Dragon Ball, as well as Journey to the West, you will see Goku and Gohan symbolically tame the dragon and the tiger, which is something that originated from Sun Wukong's ability to do so in Journey to the West, which represents his ability to tame yin and yang, or heaven and earth. Now, one of the most iconic depictions of dragons in Chinese mythology is that of a dragon holding a pearl. You've likely seen this throughout Chinese art. The actual meaning of this pearl varies from legend to legend, but one of the most prominent legends speaks of a dragon's desire to rule their environment, the sea. The sea is ruled by the moon, controls the tide, and the state of a dragon's environment. So the dragon seeks to possess the moon so that it may possess the ability to control and dominate its environment. When Buddhism became popular in Chinese culture, depictions of this pearl changed from a white jewel to that of a sun, fiery looking bright orange jewel. Now, it's commonly thought this is in reference to the sun. The sun is associated with Buddha as the bringer of life and fortune, and so the divine pearl of the Buddhist faith was born conceptually as a result, as a wish-fulfilling jewel that grants all desires. One of these stories speaks of dragons in pursuit of affluent jewels and orbs that appear to be whirling through space that could also grant any wish or desire. And in Journey to the West, the first dragon Sun Wukong comes into contact with, he tames and turns into a horse, which his master rides on his journey to enlightenment, shortly after destroying a tiger that attacked them previously in the story. Now, one common thing you can see in every single one of these cases is that the dragon represents one thing most commonly, and that is the journey to enlightenment and the principles necessary to achieve it. That is the most important symbolic element of the dragon to remember going forward. Chapter 2, The Dragon Jewel. The Dragon Jewel, the Philosopher's Stone, the Shintamani Stone, the Saurira beads. These objects are all commonly represented in anime as the end goal of their journey and are all associated with alchemy. They have some alternative names in Buddhism, such as the 7 precious gems or the 7 riches of the universal monarch. These are very ancient categories used in India to determine the character traits of a fitting ruler of a society. Buddhists believe that this wish-fulfilling stone was taken to a legendary kingdom in Asia, and that eventually a king will emerge to use its power to bring on a golden age. And in Mahayana Buddhism, the Shintamani stone is held by those who are on the path to become a Buddha because its primary function is to be used by a Buddha specifically due to the fact that by nature they would use it to eliminate poverty and suffering, and the stone should not be used by anyone who does not have a Buddha nature. Now, to become enlightened is to become above the laws of karma. Goku, the main character of Dragon Ball, and Sun Wukong, whose name literally means enlightenment, are a representation of balancing Buddhism with Taoist enlightenment. They do this through the use of violence, which is a representation of yin and yang, or the dragon. In fact, the movie Enter the Dragon about Bruce Lee is about him using Taoist martial arts, which was inspired by the same philosophy that birthed the Monkey King, to right the wrongs of society. Bruce Lee taught the importance of balance in combat, and Wukong and Goku represent this same balance. That's why in Journey to the West, Sun Wukong learns from a Taoist immortal and then becomes a Buddha, and in Dragon Ball, Goku gains his Buddha nature from Grandpa Gohan and then learns from a Taoist immortal, or Master Roshi. The Dragon Jewel was used by monks to purify water, symbolically purifying reality. The main point of its story is its intended purpose to drive humanity's progress and evolution, pointing mankind in the right direction. Very similar to mortal development in Dragon Ball Super and the job of the Kais and the many gods of Dragon Ball. The stone does this through the use of karma. If used incorrectly, it could doom mankind, but used in conjunction with a Buddha nature, it can enlighten the world and create a mass amount of good karma. And you'll see this firsthand in Dragon Ball. Now, the Mani Jewel, or Magic Jewel, which manifests whatever one wishes according to their desires, is said to have been used to create treasures, clothes, food, and to again cure sickness and suffering. Overall, it's a metaphor for the teachings of Buddhism and Taoism, and is attained from the Dragon Kings of the Sea, the same Dragon King robbed and disrespected by Sun Wukong. Although there is no solid proof of the Shintamani Stone's actual existence, it is thought by some to be the result of a meteor that crashed from space, complementing the legends of the dragons chasing these jewels that exist throughout the heavens. Chapter 3. The Namekians. Kami is the first Namekian we are introduced to in the series, and he was our first introduction to what would later be considered Namekian culture. It's important to keep in mind that Kami was originally a representation of a god who purified himself of evil instinctually, created the Dragon Balls, and also instinctually had a set of principles that match what I've been describing throughout this video. When Goku first meets Kami, Kami informs Goku that the Dragon Balls each serve as a trial of one's character. So each event that you experience for each Dragon Ball serves as a trial of your overall character. He also reveals that prior to his meeting with Goku, he planned on allowing the Earth to suffer its fate and allow the Dragon Balls to continue to be non-existent due to the fact that the Dragon Balls prior to Goku had only ever been used for selfish wishes. What this means is that had Goku not gained the nature he had from Grandpa Gohan, the Earth would inevitably be doomed by this point in the story. This is to basically tell you that Goku's actions, his decisions, are ultimately what lead to the safety and progression of Earth's society. Later in the story, when we meet the rest of the Namekians, we learn that they have a ritual when it comes to the use of the Dragon Balls themselves. They have 7 shrines that all lead to their leader, who holds the final Dragon Ball, and each shrine serves as a test for the brave Namekian warrior who seeks to use the Dragon Balls. This is because the Namekians are preventing their own planet's doom through these 7 layers of protection, while simultaneously ensuring its safety if a Namekian who seeks to use them passes the test. Now, in the Granola arc, it's established from Minato, a character who is very similar to Kami and Grandpa Gohan, that the intended use of the Dragon Balls is to create hope for the future. In Journey to the West, the end goal of the journey were the Buddha Sutras, which were intended to be used by the main character, Tripitaka, to help the entire world find enlightenment, thus creating hope for the future. The Dragon Balls replaced these sutras as the end goal of the story and allowed Toriyama to craft the masterwork that is Dragon Ball. Goku, due to his nature, fits the standard of the Namekian people automatically. Not just Goku, Krillin and Gohan as established during the Namek saga, and then eventually Piccolo in Dragon Ball Super Super Hero. This standard is a very obvious reference to the standard for the users of the Shintamani Stone, as Minato mentions that selfish wishes bring doom, which we openly see through the series as selfish wishes tend to backfire on the villains of Dragon Ball, and the current Namekian elder expresses to his students that the original Namekians may have been doomed themselves due to the misuse of the Dragon Balls. The Elder Kai also makes reference to this, stating that the Dragon Balls can throw the universe off balance, which is why the Namekians were the only ones allowed to use them, because they had developed a culture that prevented the chaos Elder Kai feared. So the Namekians have essentially developed into a monk-like culture of warriors and monks that all adhere to a specific moral code to maintain their planet, which obviously is directly inspired by Buddhist monks and martial monks who in legend crafted their culture around the use of the Shintamani Stone. Chapter 4. Goku. Now this is where things get wild. Now, I mentioned that the Dragon Jewel is the result of a long journey towards enlightenment, but it's also mentioned in the Journey to the West that the Yellow Robe Demon spat from his mouth a Sarira Stone or Dragon Jewel made of his internal elixir. This internal elixir is formed after cycles of yin and yang energy. Now, doesn't that sound familiar? Sun Wukong's stone egg is also the result of long bouts of yin and yang energy, meaning Sun Wukong's stone egg and Sun Wukong himself, the stone monkey, may actually be a walking Shintamani stone or a walking Dragon Jewel. Now, on a side note, Sun Wukong ends up swallowing the stone created by the Yellow Robe Demon in Journey to the West, and they reference this in Dragon Ball GT via Goku swallowing the Dragon Ball, which also references Sun Wukong's purifying effect and the command that he has over karma. Goku has his own version of being the result of yin and yang as well. Due to the fact that he came from Saiyan culture but was affected by Earth, thus heaven and earth. Goku leaving the Saiyan race and being raised by Grandpa Gohan is the result of the Dragon Balls themselves, and Bardock himself only achieved the Dragon Balls by being yet another example of a character added to the list who met the standard of the Namekian people to use the Dragon Balls. Bardock's story in both cases, in both iterations of the story, is a summary of Sun Wukong's life, who started off a violent ape and eventually learned to feel compassion and find his own enlightenment by taming his nature, something he does in his own way, much like Goku. Now, Goku and Bardock both have their own ways of doing this that are very unique, but they both reference the same concept of Sun Wukong's personal enlightenment as the victorious fighting Buddha, as someone who used their instincts or their nature to do a job with pure intentions on the journey to the West. And their job specifically was to protect the monk on the journey to the West. So essentially his goal was to be able to fight the demons and the many trials that he would face on the journey to the West with pure intentions. At the end of the journey to the West, Wukong becomes the victorious fighting Buddha. Now, the journey to the West all started with Wukong being trapped in Buddha's palm, which is symbolic of yin and yang and the 5 phases, and also eventually symbolic of open palm Chinese Kung Fu. Important to note that Dragon Ball, although heavily influenced by Buddhist and Taoist symbolism, has its own narrative. Rather than using Buddhism or Taoism as the basis for its moral compass, Dragon Ball uses Buddhism and Taoist influence on modern Japanese martial arts, which is what's known as Budo. Very similar to Bruce Lee using Taoist martial arts in Enter the Dragon to solve problems in society, Goku uses modern Japanese martial arts practices, which is what the plot requires of him. So essentially, by using Budo, Goku uses what's needed to continue the path towards enlightenment within the framework of Budo itself, which is centered around becoming a better martial artist. This is why, rather than Goku just making people overall more moral, he causes them to practice martial arts, which causes them to practice the same thing Goku practices as a result of his nature, which has the same purifying effect as the Dragon Balls and the Dragon Jewels. Now, all of Dragon Ball is littered with symbolism and references to Journey to the West and martial arts. Goku's original origin as a monkey boy who had a Buddha nature but would turn into a raging ape was his original version of his yin and yang, and Grandpa Gohan being squished by Goku was a parallel to Buddha squishing Wukong, which in turn leads to open palm martial arts philosophies, which lead to Goku using said philosophy to purify those around him, the same way that Buddha purified Sun Wukong. Now that's a cycle. I hope this video can help you better understand the intended purpose of the series and enhance your enjoyment of it overall. Well, that was the video, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.